Stampede Blue. What we talking about? Indianapolis, AFC South. Stampede Blue, let's air it out. Fly route, let's air it out. Topics, loaded like offense. Colts-centric, talking about it.
Welcome back to the Stampede Blue Colts cast, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Matt Dangley. Thank you guys for hanging out with us tonight. I know it's a weekend and all, but we've got a lot to talk about. So we're going to do this. For right now, got my man, Chris Blystone, here with me. What's up, Chris?
Not a lot. How's it going?
Good, man. Thanks for coming on. Thank you guys all for joining me here. We got, like I said, we've got a lot to talk about. I mean, kind of start off through free agency, man. Just, not much going on. Really just kind of Chris Ballard just taking his sweet time doing anything. Colts signed Nico Autry, not a whole lot else going on. Chris, then he kind of just, throws down and throws a trade in, man. We get ourselves the 6th overall pick for the 3rd overall pick. We get, what is it, the 37th from the Jets and the 49th from the Jets also. And that's a pretty good pull, man. What were your first thoughts? Plus we get the 2nd round pick next year. What were your thoughts about the entire thing?
I mean, I think you have to feel great about it. I mean, you look at it on the face of it, and you now have you've got an additional 2 picks in that top 50. And you move back 3 spots. Ultimately, we could, there's every possibility. And some of the people have been talking about, a mock of that top 6 picks. There might not be any change in who the Colts take. I mean, we may still get exactly the guy that Ballard wanted to take at 6. And we're going to get those extra picks now of some really good quality players. And that's exactly what you need to do when you're in the Colts position. And Ballard's, said it time and again, we've been frustrated about, some of the lack of action in free agency, but this is a chance to get 2 guys that we weren't going to get, and maybe still get the same guy we would have taken at that first pick of ours anyway. So got to be kind of excited about that.
We got our man, Stephen Reed. He's with us finally after trying to figure his way around the computer for the night. What's up, dude?
Not much. I'm just trying to, again, my computer's not working. This is my phone at this point. I just got tired of it. I'm like, all right, well, I guess we're just going to hold up the phone and see if that works.
I guess that's going to work.
Yeah, that's all I got. So that's what we're at.
I can dig it, man. All right. So, Steven, let me get your thoughts on the whole process, man. What were your thoughts on the trade?
Oh, I was giddy. Like it was a huge deal in terms of what they picked up, the value that they got for it. This is something that we've been kind of teasing about for the past month or so, knowing that there were a couple teams that we knew had to move up. And so, and the fact that the Colts didn't need a quarterback at that point, we knew that, okay, there's got to be a trade coming. And then we all kind of assumed it was Buffalo after they moved up with Cincinnati. But to get something like the Jets, it's even better because you got the 6th pick. You still get that blue chip guy. You think that you got like 3 quarterbacks are probably going to go in those first 5 picks. So you've got your choice, or you've got what's left between 3 blue chip prospects in Barkley, Nelson, and Chubb. And then you pick up 3 second rounders. That's nuts. Like, that's so valuable.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I mean, look, you even put up the value chart.
Yeah.
For those of you that are just joining us now, Matt Dangley, Stephen Reed, and Chris Blystone here on the Colts cast. And thank you guys for joining us. But it does kind of look like the Colts came away with a win when you look at that entire transaction. Like I said, the Colts get the 3rd overall, or I'm sorry, the Colts give up the 3rd pick. They get the 6th, the 37th, 49th, and 48th. That's that's for the 19th or the 2019 2nd overall pick, just the 2nd round pick. But that ends up, you had it equating to 2,200 that the Colts are giving up and getting 2,960 in return. So, I mean, is that, do we call that a fleece job, Chris? Or is that just something that you think is, probably kind of par for the course when you're looking to move up to the number 3 spot? And that's just that's just a price you're going to have to pay.
I don't think it's a fleece job. I think it's only a fleece job if the Jets whiff on their pick. Nobody in the Jets organization is going to complain if they come up and get a quarterback that transforms that franchise. That's what franchise quarterbacks cost. And, we saw it with Carson Wentz. I mean, I think maybe they paid a little bit more than what the Eagles paid to move up and get Carson Wentz. But again, if you go out, I mean, every GM knows if you can't go out and get that, that franchise quarterback, your organization is going to stall at some point. You're never going to be able to really get over the hump if you can't get that guy. And, I think it's very advantageous to the Colts, obviously. I mean, it's great that we get to be in that position. But again, I think it's one of those weird situations where they can overpay and it's still kind of a win-win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And that's kind of where I'm at with it all. It doesn't feel like it. I mean, I guess if people are saying on the outside that, it was a huge it was a fleece job is what they're kind of saying, that they gave up too much. But look, I mean, on draft day, the Colts are getting another first round pick on top of that. Am I wrong? I mean, if somebody's kind of trying to move up to number 3 in front of somebody else, they're going to get more than that, I think. Don't you?
Absolutely. I think that Buffalo is probably still a possibility. Arizona and Miami are interested in moving up to maybe get a quarterback. It depends kind of on how things fall. And, chaos could ensue if certain things, happen the right way. But I think, if we kind of get lucky and maybe things fall the right way, we could definitely be in the market to move back a little bit. I mean, if the guys that Ballard is interested in come off the board, there's nothing stopping him from rolling back to the middle of the round and picking up another first rounder, and then you're just talking about craziness that the kind of talent that you can pool up in that.
Right. We're going to be taking some calls here at about 10:45. We're going to get through this and the bulk of the news and stuff from the Colts before we start taking calls. The procedure is a little different than it was, with the Blog Talk Radio kind of call-in feature. This one, you guys are not going to be able to be on standby. So call, don't leave a message. Keep calling. If you get in, you get in. There's nothing more I can do. So we should have a good amount of calls tonight. We're on for an hour and a half, so this ought to be a good time to get busy. So Steven, if bedtime, comes a little early for you, brother, it's okay.
Hey, I was up at 7:00 working on my farm, so that's all right though.
Yeah. Well, so let's go through this then. Let's talk about what do the Colts have a realistic shot of still getting Bradley Chubb, Saquon Barkley, whoever they're actually really wanting to get with that number 3 overall pick? Can they still land that at 6? Steven, you hit it first, man.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at it from the standpoint of who needs what. Cleveland, 1 or 4, they're taking a quarterback. Let's be real, they're probably taking it at 1. The Giants, you really kind of don't know what they're going to do. Gettleman could take Barkley, could take Nelson, could take a quarterback. You clearly know the Jets are taking a quarterback. So, then you've got Cleveland, which has a lot of options there at 4. They can either take the top non-quarterback at that point that they have on their board, or they could trade out and they could go up and you got another quarterback going. Then you got Denver. Mm-hmm. Denver, you never know. You don't know what John Elway is going to do. He needs a quarterback. And so they could take a quarterback. You could be sitting there with the Colts at 6, still getting the option of Chubb or Nelson. I think it's realistic there. And if those first teams don't go quarterback, and for whatever reason, Cleveland decides to go, all right, Tyrod Taylor is going to be our guy this year, and they take non-quarterback at 1-4, then Ballard's got the option to trade out because you've got quarterbacks there at 6. And right. You could potentially pick up that trade from Buffalo that you kind of let go. Obviously, you could probably pick up 12, 22. There's a significant QB tax on draft picks, clearly, after seeing the trade value chart and what teams have given up over the past 3 or 4 years.
All right. Chris, you got anything to add to that, brother?
No, I mean, I think it's dead on. And if things fall that way, I mean, you're going to have those 3 teams. I think that's probably about as far back as Ballard's going to go because nobody else has got the capital really to provide an incentive to really move back anymore. But, I mean, Buffalo didn't come up to 12 for nothing. They're interested in getting that. And I think they'll probably be, trying to persuade the Browns to part with that number 4 pick. But they're going to have to pay for it. And the Browns, it may not be in the Browns' best interest. They may be at the point where they're thinking we really need to get these blue chip guys while we can. Mm-hmm. And if they think they've got their quarterback at 1, if that's what they do, that really may set the Colts up nicely. If they don't pick 1 and we were able to move back and collect another first round pick and maybe a future pick, the things Chris Ballard would have the potential to do with that kind of talent up at the top of the draft would just make all of us very, very excited, I think so.
Right, for sure. I think that more importantly, I feel for Colts fans because this has been a wave of emotions over the past couple of days. I mean, look, I think it was kind of funny, and I almost tossed a meme out there, after the Mike Silver thing where it was, Chris Ballard, wow us, I could just see Chris Ballard sitting there like, how's that? How's that for a wow, for a 24-hour period, So let's get to the next thing then. I've got some more I could probably throw into that fire, but, I think you guys touched on it pretty well. So let's talk about Johnathan Hankins getting released. I mean, I was surprised. I don't think that there was anybody not surprised. This to me is, I don't understand the upside of this, to be quite honest with you. I understand that they wanted to, if they say he's not a scheme fit, and let's get into this for just a minute, because I just think people aren't really aware of what is reality with the quote scheme fit, right? Scheme fit to me, for him, Hankins is an absolute scheme fit for a 4-3. He has no issues playing in a 4-3. He did it in Ohio State. He did it for the first part of his tenure in New York. This isn't exactly something he's never done before. Now, when you look at the specifics of what Matt Eberflus wants to run, maybe he's not the ideal type personnel for that, for the way Matt Eberflus is going to run his defense. That part of it, that's fine. But to say that he doesn't fit in a 4-3 is ridiculous, because whether he's in a 1 gap or a 2 gap, 3-4, either way, because he's a legitimate threat to rush the passer in a 1 gap scheme and an even front. That this doesn't make any sense to me. And people are just throwing out, oh, he's not a scheme fit. That's nuts. He might be better suited as a nose tackle, but he's been a 3-tech for the past 2 years, and before that, he was for most of his playing days in the past. Either one of you want to correct me on that? I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I mean,
you got it, Chris.
I was completely puzzled by it. I get the idea that he maybe isn't the ideal player, because maybe you're thinking he's not, quite the speed guy. I mean, Eberflus, everything he's talked about, they've talked about, they want to be a speed defense. They want everything to be fast. They want to be getting upfield. He's not really that guy. But I guess I don't understand at the cost, which is not, I would say, significant for a player of his quality. And with not having that, I mean, it's not like they have the ideal guy in waiting and they're going, hey, we got to cut him loose because he's holding somebody, he's taking somebody's spot. It's not like that guy's sitting in the back waiting to get on the field. So I got to think that there's stuff we still don't know. I've got to think that there's somebody who is in line, or I mean, maybe it's possible that they really like somebody who they think for certain is going to be available early in the second round, and they're going to grab somebody that way. I have no idea. That seems like really taking a flyer that somebody's not going to pick up your guy that you're, unless they feel like the defensive tackle depth at the type of player that they want is really deep in this draft, and they are almost certain they're going to be able to get a guy that's going to fit better. I don't really understand.
Right. Steven, what you got there, dude?
Yeah, I'll tell you that it was a little confusing to me at first as well. I mean, it still is a little bit confusing because, I mean, the salary wasn't terrible, and that it's $8 million, which
That's
is kind of weird to say that $8 million isn't terrible. But
It's
yeah,
pocket change.
Yeah, I know, right? But you look at it and you say, yeah, he's worked in a 3-4 before. It was a little puzzling to me. I see what they're trying to do, because not all 4-3s are the same.
Right.
And so if you're looking at something, you're looking at a 4-3 that like the Giants ran, where they were more like, all right, it wasn't that penetrating 4-3 like what they've said Eberflus wants to run. I get it in terms of wanting to do it and try to get your guy in, but I still am I question it because it just didn't seem like the right thing to do, because you could always just give him a year in it, see if he does well, and then you've still got him for pretty cheap next year.
Right.
And then if he doesn't do well, you cut him and you don't have any dead cap space. So I didn't understand it.
He's just not a liability in there, and I just don't understand.
Yeah. Like, there are certain players that you understood, like, why they needed to not be in a 4-3 after being a 3-4. Like, you've got, like, your bigger, like, big nose tackles, like your Vince Warfolks. Like, those guys can't make it in a 4-3.
Right.
You know, it's really tough for them because all they are two gap space eaters. You know, and the draft class has got a couple of those guys. And Chris might be right. They might be looking at somebody in the draft. Or you guys might be right. They might be looking at somebody early in round 2. Now they've got picks 4 and 5 and 17 in round 2. You're going to have some talent there. Like, I think somebody like a Taven Bryan would be good.
Yes, I was thinking about
that defensive tackle. Even a Maurice Hurst with that heart issue might be a big deal, obviously. But if he clears, he would be great. Like, I think Michigan completely misused him in their 3-4. They had him playing nose most of the time, and he is definitely a 4-3 defensive tackle, in my opinion.
right.
So, I mean, they might have a plan. They want to get the rookie some playing time and know that this year's might not be so great.
Right.
Hankins might have asked for his release to go maybe get on with a contender, knowing that his time here is running out. I don't know. It was just questionable to me.
Yeah, me too. And I think that you bring up a good point about the Taven Bryan part of it. If that's what they're looking for, that's clearly their idea. But again, the Colts aren't exactly like, trying to push people into specific positions here. This isn't a situation where the Colts are like, hey, look, guys, we just don't have any room for you. Sorry, Hankins. I mean, it's just not gonna happen today.
Well, and could they not have just kept him on the roster and said, hey, you're not going to be our starter, but we're going to pay you your $8.5 million and we're going to let you be a rotational player. I mean, maybe that was the catch. Maybe he didn't want to do that or something. But my thought is, like, if he doesn't do really well, is he a liability as a depth player? I mean, even if he doesn't play as well in that scheme, he's still going to be better than, some of the guys that you're going to find to fill out the depth on the roster. Even if he plays poorly, his poor play is going to be better than a lot of the guys that are in the depth right now. So
yeah, I don't see a way that he is a liability in any way. His cap, like Steven said,
right.
His pay wasn't a liability. His play was not a liability. And again, you don't have 53 guys right now that deserve to be on this roster, on your roster. And so that's another situation. What's the point? Is there something that Bauer's leading us into? Is he going to turn into Dr. Jekyll again tomorrow at some point, and we're going to get, kind of blown away about that as well. But folks, if you guys want to call in, the phone lines are open, 574-626-8689. Like I said, this is a little bit of a new situation, but we're going to get you on, and we're going to get your calls and your questions answered. We are also going to be a little bit quicker with the turnover. So we're going to get your questions in, and then we may discuss it with you for a few seconds, but then we're going to get on to the callers to get other people on too. So if you guys want to ring it up, again, that's 574-626-8689. Make sure that you guys are calling in, and we'd like to get some of your feedback in here about what your guys' assumptions are about everything else. So let's get it on with our first caller here, guys. Thanks for calling the Colts Cast. What's going on? Hey, what's up, Brian?
Hey, man, appreciate what you guys do here on the Colts Cast, as well as Stampede Blue and across social media. Been listening in. I really think the trade worked out in our favor. I don't think it was a fleece job necessarily, but, I mean, the Jets were in a position where they needed to come to us. I look at it like we were the bank and they were getting a mortgage. Maybe it's a win-win, but I'd still rather be the bank all day long.
Right. Chris?
As far as the release of Hankins, I'm still really confused with that. I mean, I don't get it at all. But what's interesting to me is I was listening to the Ballard. There's like a 1.5 minute, 2 minute clip of Ballard on Colts.com about the trade, and he said it would have to be a pretty attractive offer to get away from 6 because of the player we think we're going to get.
Right.
And I don't know if you talk about one player or many, but if it's Nelson or Chubb sitting there, I mean, which one would you guys rather prefer, Chubb or Nelson?
At 6, I
One
would.
of those are still left.
At 6, I'm going Chubb. You get me back a few more positions, maybe 10 or a little bit later, and Nelson's not just because he might be the only one of the two that's available, but I think that's a more realistic spot for Nelson. But hey, look, I'm a Nelson lover. I think that he is an absolute beast. You guys, Chris, Steven, either one of you have any other thoughts on that? I think that Chubb's your pick. I know that people are kind of nitpicking him right now and trying to kind of find a way out of who this guy is, but I really like a lot of what Bradley Chubb does.
Well, I think if he's on the board, he's got to be the pick just because you need that impact player. You need that pass rusher. And
Nelson, I think that Barkley would be gone. I mean, obviously, if it's Barkley, Chubb, or Nelson, maybe consider Barkley. I'm thinking if there is one of those 3 left, obviously it'd love to be Chubb, but I'd rather grab Nelson rather than trade back, to be honest, only because I just think he's going to be a solid guy for years to come. And trading back, we get some more picks, but I'm really happy with the 3 second-round picks we have now. I think it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, me too.
I'll chime in on this. I actually probably, if I were given the choice between the two, it actually would be more of a toss-up for me than straight up Chubb. I would consider Nelson there, just because looking at the depth of the guard play versus what Ballard's looking for in his 4-3 defensive end is a speed guy that can get around the corner. And I know that 3-cone drill was bad for Chubb, but that's one of the few drills that really matters at the combine for defensive ends.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I'll be interested to see how his pro day turns out, and to see what happens there, because Ballard's clear that he wants speed. And so like Chubb's relentless and probably is the best overall pass rusher in this class. But I would say with the importance of that offensive guard now in the NFL, I mean, crud, guys are getting $13 million a year and they're guards. Like people are putting their best pass rushers on the inside. And a lot of times, like Aaron Donald's starting to wreak havoc on people. Ndamukong Suh's been doing it for years, because that's where you put the guy that really can't move very well. That's the guards typically where you cover. You cover deficiencies that because they can't play tackle.
Mm-hmm.
But Quentin Nelson is a beast in there, and so I would have a tough time passing on him, even though it's a guard versus a pass rusher.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd probably still go Chubb, but it's not as clear cut as it is for a lot of other people.
The important thing, I think, probably is that you're in really good shape if you're looking at picking either of those guys. I mean, the Colts should be really pleased, whoever you get, because whether you get an impact player on the defense or you get a really big impact player on the offense, you're getting a lot better as a team. Either way, you get either one of those guys that you pick.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I think that that's about as good as you could possibly get. And I think that it's realistic. I mean, don't we? Yeah. I mean, didn't we touch on that a few minutes ago? We think that it's absolutely realistic that both of those guys could be there, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I don't think that the Colts are in any, bad, any worse off. That's for sure. I don't think they're in any sort of a negative situation to where they are going to have to worry about not getting the premier player like Chris Ballard said. That's what he wants. He's going to get that. I think honestly, I think even if he went back, now look, there's a couple other teams that are behind Tampa Bay. I've heard this thrown around. I don't know that this is like their desire to go get Bradley Chubb, but I think that would make sense for them. You have him over there on the edge, and I just think that they have a really nice front seven that they are wanting to add him to. Not only that, they need the pressure help as bad or worse than the Colts do. So they could really use that. So if there's somebody that wants to move up, maybe they even want, I mean, they wouldn't have to move up to us to get him, but somebody else trying to move up could really, dampen there might be a call from Ballard saying, hey, these guys are trying to move up to here to number 6. You guys want him or not? You know, he's here if you want to come up to 6, but otherwise we're taking the deal. I mean, I think that he's going to have a lot of leverage on draft day, and I really like that about it.
Well, that's what I like about this move being done early, because they've already benefited, and now he can sit from a place where it's like, you know, we like what we've got. We've got some options to get really good guys. We've collected some more picks, and we can take these calls and, you know, possibly move back and get more. And I think, you know, the clip that he was talking about, that the caller mentioned, you know, I watched it, and Ballard just about could have smiled and winked at the camera when he said that, because it's almost like he's just letting all those GMs know, like, hey, this is what I got for 3 spots. If any of you guys want to come up to number 6 and get a quarterback, it's going to cost you.
Right.
Yeah.
And there may not be many left. I mean, it really does bring about a ton of interesting things. And look, there's a couple winners in this. I mean, okay, so their Colts move out of 3. So then what's that for? That means that the Browns have free reign and anything that can stop them. If they go after a quarterback number 1, they have nothing stopping them from getting exactly who they want at number 4. Okay. Then you go 5, and then the Colts again, you know, are with Denver, and then the Colts again. I mean, that puts the Colts in a really good position to get, at minimum, the 3rd best legitimate talent in this draft. At worst. I mean, non-quarterback, obviously. So, I mean,
I would still consider that the 3rd best talent in this draft.
I think you're
I
right.
wouldn't say any of those quarterbacks are better than your top 3.
I think you're right too. But if we're talking about value, you know, overall, like realistic value, a really, really good quarterback is a lot of times more valuable than a near Hall of Fame pass rusher, even. You know what I'm saying? Somebody that can be there for 10 years as a quarterback and get teams to the postseason several times is as valuable or more valuable than a guy who's getting 14, 15 sacks on a crappy team. It just, I mean, you know, in weight, I'd say more valuable even than that. So I think that's definitely something that is going to be really interesting come draft day. I think it's going to be a lot of fun up until then, because, you know, we get to sit here with our number 6 overall. We get a few extra picks and everything, and things are great. I'm glad that he did this, but then even on the heels of that, that's what also makes the Johnathan Hankins move just that much more strange to me, because I think that you would want to bring in a guy that you would want Hankins to kind of help mold up front. I mean, they've got Hassan Ridgeway. I'm not so sure that Hassan Ridgeway is a moldable piece. You know, I mean, maybe he is, but folks, don't forget, if you guys want to call in 574-626-8689, you can get in here on the Colts cast and get us a question, and we'll get to talking about everything that happened today. I was so baffled by the day. I really was. I was like, okay, here we go. Now we're going to see Chris Ballard really kind of get into what we're expecting from him. And then we get hit with the Hankins news, and it's like, Jesus, man, I just don't even know what the hell's going on anymore. It seems like, because we get good news, and then we get the bad news. And I wouldn't say necessarily bad news, but it was definitely news that none of us, I think, were expecting. It didn't seem that there was a whole lot of people who would have said, hey, yeah, I'm pretty sure that Hankins is going to be a guy that gets booted with this new scheme change, and even just with the new coaching staff and everything else that comes with it. Guys, we got our second caller of the show. What's going on from Texas? How you doing, man? You're on the Colts cast.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Great. How are you?
Good. Feeling decent, I guess, about the season so far.
Which part of it? Or are you more excited about the draft pick exchange? Or let me ask you this. Are you on board with the Johnathan Hankins news?
I am. I think, to me, like, I don't know. I always felt like he was always signed with the intention of only sort of fitting Pagano's scheme, but he just doesn't look like a 4-3 D tackle to me. And I kind of was on board with it. I wish they would have traded him, though. I think you could have gotten like maybe a 6th rounder or a 5th rounder out of him just for the contract that he was on.
For sure.
But yeah, I was on board with it. I didn't really have a problem with it.
And see, we've talked about this quite a bit. The group, the Stampede Blue group. for everything that Chris Ballard drafted last year and for the guys that he brought in, most of everybody he brought in we felt were pretty versatile free agents. All of his draft picks seem to make us continually talk about in our, IM client, just constantly going back and forth about, Malik Hooker is a cover 3, cover 2 safety, a guy that can roam. Quincy Wilson's a tough, long boundary guy that can, play in just about any scheme. We really thought that this was inevitable, the scheme change. We thought it was coming to something. But we also felt that Ballard not only drafted for the scheme change, but that he brought in the free agents last year for the scheme change. That, to me, was another reason that kind of surprised me with Hankins being released, because I thought he was a versatile guy. He obviously played the 0 tech a lot, the nose tackle, and that's fine. But he was also a 3 tech for the last 2 years. He moved around in and out. I mean, just a little bit. He was one of the more versatile defensive linemen that the Colts had. To me, that was where I kind of thought maybe I didn't understand what was really going on, because I felt like I said, that he drafted and signed free agents last year specifically for a scheme change.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, I think he was sort of our big ticket free agent last year. He came off of being paired next to Snacks Harrison in New York. So people thought, all right, I at least thought he could have given it a shot, at least from what I looked at basically in stats wise. He didn't have as great of a year. That last year he was in that 4-3. So I felt he was okay. I'm just wondering where they go from there in terms of addressing that position, because now,
right,
I think I'll just add it to the list of big gaping holes that we have to fill. It looks like they're probably going to go through draft, though. Like, through the draft, at least. I maybe for an instant thought that Sue was going to be a possibility, but with his emphasis on culture and really growing the team from homegrown talent, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, what do we do there? Chris, let me ask you this first. What do the Colts do? And thank you for the call, man. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Oops, sorry about hanging up on you too quick, man. That wasn't cool. Anyways, Chris, what are your thoughts on this? Where do the Colts go in the beginning of in the draft? Do they now they almost have to draft another defensive lineman? And not only that, but they've got to draft a guy that can be, as versatile, more versatile, that can be a legitimate threat to get into the backfield. One of those one gap guys that can pierce the offensive line, pressure the pocket from the interior. That's not exactly the easiest thing in the world to see. There's a few guys in this draft that can do that, granted. And there's some guys that have some speed and some athleticism that can get in through the offensive line. And this just seems to me like another piece of stress that is going to be added come draft time, regardless of the fact that they've got some extra picks.
Yeah, I really struggle with this one. I think there's got to be a lot of information we don't know, and we obviously don't know what the Colts draft board looks like, and they may be looking at somebody. I don't know. They may be looking at somebody that they're thinking they're going to be able to get early in the second, and that's going to be their answer. Maybe they have somebody really dialed in that they think this guy is going to be there on the board for sure, and we're taking him if he's there. But that just seems really risky to me, to get rid of a piece without really knowing what you're going to replace it with. And I don't understand it. I almost wonder if we're going to find out. I don't know I don't know who's going to be a better option out there. I mean, the obvious name that pops out is Sue, and obviously people have made that connection as well. That doesn't make sense to me, because that kind of flies in the face of just about everything that Ballard preaches all the time. But that's really the only name that you look at and you go, hey, available to the Colts right now, that's the only guy who probably is better and maybe fits that, that scheme and that style of play that you're looking for better than Johnathan Hankins did. So unless we're just not seeing what it is that Eberflus wants out of these players, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I don't think until we really see, I don't know, I would be surprised if they fill this role with a quality free agent that's going to really completely actually fill that gap. I think it's going to be somebody that they're going to draft. And this is supposedly, and I'll admit I haven't done a ton of study on the defensive line, but supposedly this defensive line class is pretty solid. So, and a pretty deep class, I think, from my understanding as well. So there's going to be guys there, but are they going to be Johnathan Hankins right away? I think you're going to have to take a guy pretty high to get that kind of production right out of the gate.
Right. And that's kind of where I fall too. Steven, what are your thoughts on that, brother?
Yeah, I think that it's pretty clear Ballard's likely going to be going through the draft to fill his holes. It seems more and more likely that he's running this as more of a 2-year full reload than going through and making any changes in free agency. And you look at free agency right now, and there's not a lot of names left at that interior defensive line position. Now in the defensive line position itself, there's some solid players in there that could end up being some just good playmakers in that 4-3 defense. And so it's one of those things where you look at it and you're like, all right, you kind of have to brace yourself as a Colts fan, because you kind of see the writing on the wall that he's looking to build this kind of the right way, the way that Polian built it. Peyton Manning's first couple of years, they were pretty rough.
Right.
But once he got a couple of drafts stacked on top of each other, like Ballard said that he wants to do, you had the winningest franchise in over a 10-year span. And so that's kind of the sacrifice that you make as a Colts fan right now, is that this might not be great. And the defensive line position, you don't know what they're going to do. I guess they could bring in Sue, like Chris said. It doesn't make sense in terms of what Ballard's preached in terms of locker room, other than that people have said that Sue is great off the field. On the field, he's obviously questionable. He's always playing,
right?
So that's good. Part of being a best player is being available,
right?
And so he's always playing. The only times that he's not played his games were times that he was suspended for conduct.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, who knows at this point? I take that back. Ballard knows and Jim Irsay knows, and they're okay with it,
right?
And that's about all that we can know.
And that's kind of the thing, at least with Asu, the talk of him coming in. I don't think that he's a bad locker room guy per se, because I don't know that we've ever really heard that, like that he's fighting with his teammates and stuff like that. I don't know that I've ever heard that. Maybe, but I don't remember it. I think the thought about him is maybe that he would create dissension among the group. And with such a young, vulnerable group coming in, such a, like I said, 2 and 3 year veterans, you don't want that. You don't want somebody to come in that's kind of like trying to run the team themselves. And I think that's where he gets a little iffy. Not so much that he would be a bad locker room guy with that, but that he might, try to create, followers of his own, for whatever that's worth. And I don't even know if that makes any sense, but that's the only thing that's really running through my head as far as a negative. He has had issues with the league. He has had issues with teammates. He has been known to be dirty. But if you kind of consider that to be a positive for your team going forward, maybe you risk the rest of it. But like I said, with a vulnerable young group, and I think that's kind of what everybody's thought process is. He's wanting to create the culture, and I don't know that Sue fits into that culture. Maybe,
and he's 31.
Yeah, and you're right. And he's 31, and that's not going to that doesn't fit. That doesn't fit what Ballard's doing. So real quick, guys, want to throw this out here. Make sure that you guys are getting a hold of Ernest Realty Group. If you guys are looking to buy or sell a home, if you are, call Mike Ernest. Mike and his team of the real estate professionals are experts in the greater Indianapolis real estate market. They've helped people just like you achieve their real estate goals. Listen, folks, if you guys are looking to buy or sell a home, knowledge is power. You need a professional on your team that can help you navigate the home buying or home selling process. And you need someone who can negotiate the best deal for you. Mike Ernest is that guy. He's a true pro who knocks it out of the park every time. He's received numerous industry awards for being a leader in the Indianapolis real estate market. So when it comes to buying or sell your home, don't get burned by an amateur. Hire a professional. Whether you live in Indy or any of the surrounding communities, Ernest Realty Group can help. Call Mike Ernest at 317-285-9691 or find him online at homeprosindy.com. Again, that's 317-285-9691 or BasketballProsIndy.com. We got a call from Brooksville, Florida. What's going on? You're on the Colts cast.
Yeah, I just had a trade scenario I don't hear anyone talking about. We moved right in front of Tampa Bay, and they need a pass rusher.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if Bradley Chubb and Quentin Nelson were sitting there, just call up Tampa Bay and say, hey, the last pick of the Jets traded us in the second round, just to swap seconds with Tampa Bay. They move up one spot, we move down one spot, and take Quentin Nelson.
Well, we talked about that just a little bit earlier, as far as maybe holding the keys to an additional piece of trade bait, basically. Some of those teams that were maybe wanting to get in front of Tampa Bay, I think that's where their leverage kind of falls. But I think there's a lot of things in play here, because we always seem to be surprised some way or another in the first 10 picks of the NFL draft. We think we know how it's going to go. There are multiple times that we just don't have a freaking clue, and things end up getting flipped upside down. I mean, there could be a massive pull for guys like Tremaine Edmonds or Roquan Smith. We honestly don't know. There could be people. I mean, we could have already seen Quentin Nelson off the board, even, for that matter. And there's other guys that aren't getting the talk right now that are guys who a lot of teams covet. I mean, and I want to just throw a name out there because it means nothing. Forget about the actual person I'm talking about, but I'm giving you an example, or for instance, Brian O'Neill. Let's just say, for example, some team really loves Brian O'Neill and they go after him. What do you do? That's a team that wants to come up and get him. You allow that to happen. And then the rest of the draft afterwards is a complete different viewpoint than what you started with 3-4 picks ago.
Yeah, I just don't see it happening because Denver plays a 3-4. I don't really see Bradley Chubb as a fit. I could see maybe Cleveland. But after that, I just don't see a fit. I know Denver traded their corner, so they might be looking for a corner. I just see Quentin Nelson and Bradley Chubb sitting there. So why not waste it, move down one spot, and take Quentin Nelson? And then take a 2 and a 3 and maybe move up and get move into the first round and grab a offensive tackle.
Well, we got those extra picks because we need them. Not necessarily, my opinion, anyways. Not so much because they want to use them as leverage. I think it's more realistic that the Colts are eventually moving back. I think that they'll take one of those second round picks and move back a little bit further, acquire at least another third rounder out of it. And I think that's kind of going to be the sentiment. I think they're going to continue to attempt to pick up one pick at a time, maybe 2 picks, depending on which pick they're trading out. There's a lot of possibilities, and I hope that Ballard is true to his word as far as that he's going to be taking calls up to the last minute. Chris, what are your thoughts on kind of this entire conversation?
Well, so I'm looking at the draft order, and one of the things that I thought has been really interesting is, the talk on, for the whole last month leading up to this point has been, kind of talking about Saquon Barkley and where is this guy going to land. And I think if you look at the board and how things are lining up right now, I think he's going to slide. And I think he's going to be, it might even be possible that you would see somebody willing to come up to 6 to pick up Saquon Barkley who didn't think he's going to be there. I'm looking specifically at somebody like maybe San Francisco who thinks that Tampa's going to take somebody like Saquon Barkley, or you think if it slides back to where San Francisco is, maybe somebody moves up to take him. I don't think that would be a wise move, but people make unwise moves in the draft every year, and we see these things get crazy when somebody is really high on a player, and then they start to get to and they think they're out of reach, and all of a sudden they're not. People start to get a little bit crazy, and so I think the Colts are going to be the beneficiaries because we don't have a specific need; we have several needs. I think we're going to be the beneficiaries of being able to kind of play against some of that. And not only that, but we got a GM with ice water in his veins. So he's not going to be that guy who's going to be antsy and crazy. And I think that we're going to have the opportunity for some of those teams that start getting squirrely to capitalize on it.
Yeah, I think so too. What do you got on that, Steve?
Oh, I think that, as we were saying earlier, the Colts are in the best position in the draft again. at 6, knowing pretty much what's going to go happen in front of them. And if something weird happens, which, last year there were 4 wide receivers taken in the top 10. There's been runs on positions that you don't expect. Maybe this year it's linebacker with, Harold Landry, Tremaine Edmonds, Roquan Smith, Bradley Chubb, maybe. I honestly have no idea what Denver's going to do. You could see them trying to unload C.J. Anderson and go on with Saquon Barkley. You can see him going Quentin Nelson. You can see him going Bradley Chubb, all of them, really. I don't think Bradley Chubb's a bad fit necessarily for a 3-4. But and the other thing is Tampa Bay also is looking for a running back. So you could realistically just do that one move, drop back, pick up an extra second round, an extra third round pick, and call it a day. And that they're going to take Saquon Barkley and you're going to get your guy. Or, depending on how the draft falls again, you could be in a position to trade one of those teams that wants a quarterback.
Right. Absolutely. Guys, we got another call, man. What's up? You're on the Colts cast. What do you got for us?
Oh, yes. I have a question about the salary cap.
It's you again. Thank you so much for calling back in. What is your name?
Carmen.
Carmen. You're my favorite caller every time.
Thank you. Okay, good. My question is the salary cap. We started with $70 million. We've only signed one person. How much of that money do they have to spend? And what will they do with? Who are they going to sign? Are we going to re-sign our own people like Desir or Jack Mayherd or who? What are we going to do with the money?
What are they going to do with the money is a really, really good question at this point, as far as I'm concerned. Do you have something on in the background, Carmen?
Oh, I'm sorry. I can hang up and you can just answer my question.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if that was you or if that was me. Sorry. It's up to you.
Okay.
You can
I'll just hang up and you just answer the questions, okay?
Okay. Thank you, Carmen.
Okay. Thanks for taking my call.
Absolutely. Every time. She's my favorite caller. She really is. I
think she had her YouTube up in the background.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, because usually the feedback you get, like when you're on the radio, you get that feedback.
Hear something, but I couldn't really tell what it was. I couldn't, could have been just TV or something like that. But Stephen, you kind of explain this. You're kind of the guy who's a little bit better at explaining the cap. Ultimately, Carmen, what this means is that the Colts have to come to a cap. What is it? Salary floor. They've got to spend a certain amount of money.
Yeah, it's 89% of what the cap is. It's cash. It's cap spending, and so a lot of teams, what they'll do is they'll roll cap over. They'll front load contracts. It's a numbers game. I believe the Colts need to spend a little bit of money to come up to it this year, and it's a 3 or a 5 year rolling average too. So the fact that is it a 4-year average?
I think so.
Yeah, so right there in the middle. See, I'm totally wrong. But yeah, so I think the Colts are actually going to be okay in terms of the average on a year-to-year basis. Like teams like the Bengals don't spend any money at all half the time, and then every once in a while they'll throw like a crazy ton of money at Vontaze Burfict to play 4 games before he gets suspended again. Breaking news. No, I don't know if he's actually been suspended. He might have been. I don't know.
You're definitely not wrong.
Yeah.
So, Carmen, that's basically what it is. Over a 4-year period, they've got to average up to almost 90% of using their cap, what they've got, their amount of money that they have to offer players and free agents. So that's ultimately what it is. How they're going to do it is a different story. Blystone, what do you got, man? You got something for me here? You got something up your sleeve about a couple of guys that they could go out and nab that are still on the market?
Well, yeah, I definitely think that they're going to spend more money. If you look at what they did last season or last offseason, their free agency was pretty active, but it also wasn't immediate. I mean, by this point, a lot of the signings were done, but it wasn't like a day one thunder and lightning kind of thing where, some of these teams have spent all their money by the time, the actual free agency period has kicked off. And I think that they're going to end up having to spend some money on offensive linemen, and they may have to overpay a little bit. I know that Ballard is trying to avoid that, but I mean, you pay what it costs to get a player. I mean, it may make you kind of hate yourself a little bit. But offensive linemen are scarce, and you're probably going to have to overpay for somebody who isn't. I mean, well, who was it? Ryan Jensen just became the highest paid center in the NFL because he's totally deserving of that kind of money, right? Nobody should begrudge him making a ton of money, but I mean, it's like you're going to pay what it takes to get one of these guys in if you really want to make a difference on the offensive line. So I think that's an area we definitely can expect the Colts to try to spend some money. I think, there's going to have to be a signing at cornerback somewhere. Even if it's, if it's a depth guy, you're going to have to look at the cornerback position.
Mm-hmm.
And, I still think they'll probably sign, somebody on the defensive line. I'm not certain that it's going to, again, I don't know that there's going to be any big splash signings. Obviously, yeah, there's not a whole lot of guys, that can be too splashy. Now you may have some veterans that start to get cut, as we go a little bit, but yeah, I don't know. They're going to be, I mean, they'll have to spend it. Obviously they're going to do what they have to do to get, to get that money spent, but I'm not totally sure where they're going to do it either. Other than offensive line, I don't know who's out there, and there's not a lot out there, at that position. So.
Right. It's going to be dicey in my opinion. And there's a high probability as we get further down the list of these free agents of who exactly is going to succeed. We've got another caller from Ontario. What's going on? You're on the Colts cast.
Hey, man. Hey guys.
How you doing?
Daryl calling from Toronto.
We say Daryl.
And I was just wondering, with the trade back from 6, if they would target Roquan Smith.
He's he'd definitely be one of one of the more high priority type guys that you would want to grab out of that position. But I still think you're looking at Bradley Chubb at that number 6 overall position. If the Colts love Tremaine Edmonds and want to use him as an edge rusher, I think they take him there too. If they love, Roquan Smith, he's definitely going to be there. I don't see any situation, honestly, where Roquan Smith, is not there at 6 overall. I just don't see that as a possibility at all. So, it really, the Colts, aside from maybe a couple specific players, are going to be in fantastic position to get almost exactly who they want. And there would really have to be a wrench thrown, in my opinion, in the whole mix. Like we said, okay, Cleveland is more than likely going to take a quarterback at 1. At number 2, I think that you can pretty much bet on the Giants kicking back. You know what I mean? I think that somebody's probably going to end up trading back. I really think that's a high probability. Then you go to number 3, you've got the Jets. That's a quarterback. Number 4 is Cleveland. Whoever they didn't get at the quarterback, they're going to get the top player that they want, whether it's Saquon Barkley, it could be Bradley Chubb, it could be a host of different guys. It could also be, a couple other guys. It could also be the corner out of Ohio State. For some reason, his name is
Denzel.
Yes, thank you. I've heard a lot that they may have a lot of interest in him.
Minka Fitzpatrick is up in that talk as well.
Exactly. And then you go to the Colts, to Denver. They're probably going to be getting a quarterback too. And they might actually be the ones that trade up to get New York. Possible. They don't have a whole lot of, assets to do that, but I think that's still a possibility. But then you got the Colts, and you've got just about, literally almost everybody left. I think the Colts are in great position with that, man, and I think that the Colts are going to have no problem finding exactly who they want at that number 6 overall if they stay put.
I think Roquan Smith is more likely if they trade back farther. If they trade back to Miami or to Buffalo, I think that becomes a lot more likely. That's more the range that you continue to see him in as far as, what level of talent is coming off the board. I think he'd be in a pretty serious conversation at maybe around the 10 to 15.
Yeah. I tend to believe that's accurate. I think that's pretty close. And let's kind of look, if we're looking at realistic people for offensive line, we're looking at guys that are still in that age range, right? We're looking 25, 26, or maybe even younger. There's just not much there. There just isn't. Cam Fleming is there from New England. He's a guy that I think would be worth taking a chance on, to be quite honest with you. And I'd like your guys' feedback on that, because he's been a guy that he struggled but he's still very young. And I think that a lot of people see him as a guy who can be taught, who can be worked up to a much better player than what he currently is. Anything?
No, I would agree with you. He's young. He's 25.
We agree he's young.
He's young. He's had flashes of playing well. You put him at right tackle, and you maybe solve that position, which would be nice for once, or at least for once in the Andrew Luck era. That's one of the guys that's out there. DJ Fluker, has he signed yet anywhere? I don't think he's signed anywhere yet that I've heard. He's not really high on my priority list. I'd rather take a shot on Cam Fleming than I would DJ Fluker. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of options.
No, there is.
Yeah, in regards to Roquan Smith, that I think like Chris said, he's not that 9 to 12 range is really kind of where I would place him.
Mm-hmm.
And San Francisco is kind of known to be a mover, so you never know.
Yeah, they're one of the teams that I thought might be interested in coming up and grabbing that number 6. Because what do they pick at 9?
Yeah, they're at 9.
Yeah, and then I think who is it? Oakland's at 10.
Yep, Oakland, Miami, Buffalo.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, you've got a lot of teams right there that are. I mean, I don't know that we've heard that they are interested in moving up, but I think that there's just still a possibility that anybody wants to move up. Let's put it that way. Let's look at another position that the Colts haven't addressed yet, and we know that they're eventually going to have to address at some point, whether it be the first round, second round of the draft, or whether they can bring somebody in, because I think that they have to bring some people in. I don't think that they can waltz in to the end of past the draft. I don't think that they can waltz into camp with Antonio Morrison and a couple of these other guys as their inside linebackers on the roster. Now, Jeremiah George is a guy that I think that you can get with, and you can kind of see how versatile he is, because again, I think that he was brought in for versatility. But I mean, there are not a lot of guys out of this group. A former Colt, Sean Spence, he's still available right now. But you want to go after Navarro Bowman. How about Kelvin Shepard? We know this name. There's a guy named Jarrell Freeman out there. This is not an exciting inside linebacker group. There were a few guys. I still think that Hitchens got paid too much for his skill set. I think he was really, really good, and I would have called him. But $9 million is a lot, in my opinion. Todd Davis, on the other hand, that was a steal for Denver. They got him for $5 million a year, and I think he's a really good ball player too. So there wasn't a lot of big, long contracts with this. Hitchens got the longest one that I've seen, depending on what Coyle, Ballard, and Brian Peters get. But, I mean, Avery Williamson, Todd Davis, Zach Brown, and Demario Davis all got 3 years, and that was the longest anybody got aside from Anthony Hitchens. So I think that this is definitely a group that the Colts have to get somebody out of it, but I don't know what they're going to offer legitimately. I mean, what are the Colts going to do? Because this is going to be, they're going to get to a point and we're going to be like, okay, man, we got another year of Antonio Morrison. We've got some other guys on this roster. Okay, whatever. But then they all get cut. You know what I mean? This is going to be an up and down offseason as well. I think that there's going to be a lot of bringing in outside players. And this is going to be another situation where, similar to the guys that Ballard brought in last year, where he was kind of making the roster like behind the scenes, I guess you want to say, bringing in, some cornerbacks and some other guys that are kind of on the back end of the roster, that's what he was going to want as depth for this year going forward. One of the guys that I'm really excited about to see, do the Colts bring him back or hang on to him and really kind of see what he did? He was hurt last year. Right after he got pulled up to the active roster was Krishawn Hogan. He's a guy that is local, went to Marion University. I'm just really not excited, but I am kind of excited for him because he's a big body receiver. He's got good hands and speed. He's kind of, he could end up being what they wanted Dante Moncrief to be. I mean, he's got that kind of skill set. I don't know that that's who he'll turn out to be, but I think that the potential for him is real. Is there anybody on the roster that you guys are kind of thinking this about, kind of somebody down the list a little bit that they brought in, maybe a Darnell Sankey or anything like that?
I'm gonna have to think about that for a second.
I was gonna say you kind of threw that on us. I'll throw one out there for you. I really like Matt Jones. When he was with the Redskins, like I don't think he got a fair shake. I think he's got a lot of talent there available, and they just have a few things that they need to work on with him that in terms of fundamentals and techniques. And bringing in the San Francisco running backs coach Rathman. I think that's going to be a huge thing for him to kind of really learn. And I think that Ballard's really high on him. I know Scott McLaughlin was really high on him, the former Redskins GM. And Ballard and McLaughlin are two of the best talent evaluators in the NFL. So I would say if there was some under the radar guy that really didn't get a lot of play last year for whatever reason.
Are you talking about McLaughlin?
Yeah.
Okay, man, you said McLaughlin, I think.
Sarah McLaughlin, and all of a sudden, like,
trying to figure out who
sad dog song start playing in your head.
Sorry, dude, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was so confused.
I've always heard it. I'm out here in Northern Virginia, and I always heard it as McLaughlin.
Oh, okay.
And so that I might be totally wrong. It might be McLuhan, but that's the way I've always said it. Dishwasher, whatever.
Man, I'm sorry. Who you got, Blyson? Somebody.
So he's not. I guess he's kind of under the radar. I'm interested to see, because we're talking about how strapped everybody is for offensive linemen. I'm interested to see how Deshaun Bond does next year.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about really needing some of these offensive line guys, and he stepped in, and until Jeremy Vunovic destroyed him, I think he did pretty well, considering that what was Brissett holding the ball like 7 or 8 seconds every drop back or something like that. He did okay, and I think as an undrafted free agent, it'll be interesting to see what kind of role that he plays. He's got some experience as a starter because he had to, and didn't he break it? Wasn't he the one who broke his foot because of the feet of death from Vunovic or whatever? Is that the right? Am I thinking? I think that was his injury. I know he was knocked out from injury, but whatever it was, I'm interested to see if he is able to come back and whether he's, a solid depth rotational guy, or maybe he can step in and, do something a little bit more significant than that and alleviate the need. Obviously, they're not going to know if he can do that before they draft some guys, but maybe Ballard has seen in him some things that he thinks like this is a good guy to have as a rotational guy. And how badly do the Colts need to have some depth offensive linemen that can step in and and actually play when somebody goes down injured like they inevitably will. So yeah, I'd be excited to see him do well.
I've got one more for you.
Okay.
Ready for it?
Absolutely.
Andrew Luck. Oh,
it's under the radar.
We are talking about bottom of the roster here, aren't we?
Yeah, we haven't even seen him play. We haven't seen him throw. It's a huge thing.
I hear he has a book club. I don't know.
Yeah.
Somebody that I am legitimately curious about, because I think people are starting to throw around the scheme fit type crap with this guy too, is a guy who, and he's not under the radar, but he's a guy who's kind of put himself under the radar, and it's Henry Anderson. Whether it being injured or just not completely playing up to his capabilities in the past, it seems that he's really just gotten kind of, I guess, swept under the rug. I mean, I don't even have a good analogy for it at all, but it really seems like he's almost made him
afterthought.
Yeah, he's really on the verge of being a cap, or not a cap casualty, but a camp casualty. And I really think that this year they're going to either see a quicker version of him, because I mean, look, Hankins was booted, and this is totally possibly not related, but I'm thinking Hankins was somewhere around 320, 325 or something like that. And if you look at the defensive tackles on the Colts roster, you've got Henry Anderson, who's 300, Jonathan Calvin, who's 266. None of us know who he is, so if you don't feel bad. But Karan Reed, he's right around that 300 mark. Well, you've got Hassan Ridgeway and Grover Stewart, who are both that 320 to 330 range. Those two guys, in my opinion, is that who Ballard is really trying to kind of, and I won't say force feed into the lineup, but are those the two guys that he's just going to go forward with in the interior in those, two defensive tackle positions? Or are they going to, I think that they're going to boost the defensive line inside of this defensive tackle position, but which version are they going to go after? Are they going to go after the heavier guys, you think? Or are they going to go after some quick guys that are, maybe that Taven Bryan type comparison, some guys who are a little more twitchy and athletic?
I keep hearing the quick thing. Ballard keeps talking about wanting fast guys. Eberflus talked about wanting fast guys. I'm not going to lie, I would be very upset. Henry Anderson is one of my favorite players on the Colts. I've liked him since he came to the league. I would be grouchy. But the thing is, he was really coming on toward the end of the season, and he had that freak. I don't even remember he fractured his larynx. It was like a ridiculous injury, and could have killed him. But on the other side of that, once it's repaired, it's not a long-term, it's not an athletic kind of injury. It's not a knee injury or anything like that. And I think toward the middle to the end of the season, you started to see the Henry Anderson we saw when he first came into the league, where, two full years removed from that ACL tear and all the other stuff that he had to kind of fight through. That's what you always hear. It takes like 2 years to get back to where where you really need to be. And I thought he started looking like he was coming on as a player. And Ballard talks about these homegrown guys. He wants these guys that are good locker room guys, good culture, and, grown up in the system. I don't know if he means his specifically guys, because obviously then that doesn't really apply to Anderson. But in my mind, I'm thinking he needs to be a piece of this defense that stays. Maybe that doesn't mean anything because it wasn't Ballard's guy, but I'd say I just tend to think the smaller guys are going to be the way that they're going to go. I don't know. We'll see. Who knows? I didn't think Johnathan Hankins was going to get cut, so what do I know? Yeah,
right. What do you think, Steven? Any parting shots here for everybody before we get you guys out of here?
I'm excited about Ballard. It's exciting to be a Colts fan right now. Even though they're a little down, you can tell the people that are true fans are the ones that are with us right now and are really pumped about it. And you'll see them on Twitter and everything like that. But I really think that Ballard's got a good idea of what he's doing, and he's really good at it.
Yeah.
Like, he's not around monopoly money to people. He's not just spending money hand over foot just because he's got it, which is refreshing to see in a general manager. We wasted 5 years of Andrew Luck by throwing money around, and Andrew Luck kind of exacerbated that because he won early and they didn't expect it, and so it kind of changed the plans. But at the same time, like, Ballard's not taking that into account. He is going through it very methodically. And this is likely the plan that he set out with Jim Irsay back, a year ago when he got hired. This was his plan. He was going to do what he could this year, see what came out, and then build through the draft. And don't sign a bunch of free agents. I'm interested to know what next year's free agent crop is going to look like. Because the Colts may have a significant amount of rollover money if they don't spend anything. Because I don't think they necessarily have to at this point. As long as they spend it within a 4-year stretch, that's what matters.
Yeah, I agree. They're going to have a lot. They're going to have quite a bit as far as I'm concerned. They're going to spend some money. They're going to get real close to what they have to spend to be good to go. But I really think that they're going to be well set for money for when that for what maybe they deem as the right time. When everything, maybe they're a player or two away and they need to get a young guy in, and they see him as whoever he is at that time. that young player who can really make the difference on this team, where they're maybe one key piece away that they didn't nab from the draft in the previous year or just whatever. So, Chris, what do you got for us, man, if we're walking out the door here?
Well, I mean, I think that most Colts fans at this point are one Andrew Luck throwing bombs downfield video away from being back in. We really want to believe that Ballard knows what he's doing. And, you get a lot of those people who are upset and who don't like what he's doing and kind of challenge that. And I think that the argument that I always make is not so much that you can see from what he's doing, but about the way that he conducts himself just tells you just have this intuitive feel that this guy knows what's up. And you hear those kinds of that buzz around the league, that's what people think about him. They think that he's good. They think he knows what he's doing. And unfortunately, that means that we have to kind of, just wait and not really know a whole lot. And free agency seems like we see this free agency frenzy every year, and we somehow manage to get back to this every single year. We don't learn. But those people who make all of those moves, I mean, how many times do you guys remember over the last 15 years where the Redskins or the Dolphins were, look like heroes because of free agency,
right?
And then they do nothing. And then not only do they do nothing, but they wreck their team going forward because they screw up young talent because they have corrupting forces that have been brought in. They screw up their cap because they've got no way to, to get out of it in the long term. So as irritating as it is for nothing to happen, and especially, like in the age of Twitter, where like I just am refreshing constantly to get new information, like we don't like patience, but unfortunately, or fortunately for us, Ballard doesn't care what we like. And he's going to go out and get the pieces that we need to actually win games. So, I think we're setting things up well. This just occurred to me, and this is not really a good parting thing because it does require a little bit of thought and discussion, but he may have even been thinking, if I cut Johnathan Hankins, maybe I'm getting a compensatory pick next year. I don't know if that has any impact. I don't really know how that works. It's a
not on the release. It doesn't.
No. Okay. Release. Well, let's see. Should have just kept that to myself. But you have all of this stuff that is clearly like Ballard is not worried about what we're worried about, and we also forget. Speaking of Andrew Luck and throwing, if Andrew Luck comes back and is Andrew Luck and is healthy, this is not like everybody's woe is me. The Colts are so terrible. The Colts are a winning team, like immediately. Like Andrew Luck comes back. I don't care how good some of these other teams in the division have gotten. He's that good. And this team was in a ton of games without him last year. So I know that there's a lot of Colts fans who are very nervous and think that he's not done enough. We're not a Super Bowl ready team in 2018. I don't think that's the case, but we're a much better team.
Yeah.
And we're set up to continue to get better instead of to do like the Jaguars are doing and, frantically spend their money before it all falls apart.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of lead me into mine as well. Kind of similar to what you were getting, you were hitting on there towards the end there. The Andrew Luck wins 4 or 5 more games for this Colts team last year. This Colts team sucked last year. Any way you slice it, it doesn't make a difference. How you want to, say that Andrew Luck comes in and does something special for us. You're right, because he wins another 4 or 5 games playing at 2016's level last year. And the fact is that Brissett was young. He was, very under taught, so to speak, to that point. He was pretty raw, wasn't a big drop back guy constantly throwing 30 times. He didn't do that in New England. I don't know if he did that in college, to be quite honest with you, because I didn't study him. But it wasn't that guy last year. Another year, maybe, okay. But Andrew Luck comes in and he makes a difference. On the flip side of that, this roster it was pretty much on its last leg last year. Lots of injuries, lots of guys really kind of hitting the end road, doing the best that they could, stopping the run in the beginning of the year. And after that, it just became so exhaustive that they just could not do it anymore. So this Colts team really has a long way to grow. I don't know if I'm patient enough. That's just the bottom line. I know what's right. I tell myself this crap all the time. However, I just don't have the patience for this crap. I can't handle 3 years of a rebuild. I mean, I'm good with it. because I know what results are going to come from it. But at the meantime, it's like, man, go get Andrew Norwell. Go get him, because he's going to protect Andrew Luck. Go get him. And, you know, I don't care. Throw $15 million at him. You know, you don't have to spend anything else there. I mean, he's not going to spend the rest of that damn money anyways. Why does he care if he spends 15 million of it? We're sitting on 70 some million dollars right now. And, you know, things are going to be falling into place, and we're good with that. And I'm good with it. But I just want to know what's going to happen tomorrow. That's all. I want to know what's going to happen tomorrow. I'm not a patient person. When I saw something I wanted, I would do everything I could to find a way to steal it or take it or just whatever, because I wanted it now. I didn't want to wait. And so that's kind of where my thought process comes from. I was a thief, I guess. I don't know if that, I probably shouldn't admit that on the air, but
yeah, don't disclose. That's a bad idea.
I guess I was trying to expand on a point that I'm, you know, impatient, but it's all good. Look, I do trust what Chris Ballard's bringing to the table. I just hope that I'm able to sit in the seat long enough not to freak out, you know, before it all comes to fruition. So, Stephen, Chris, thank you guys for hanging out tonight with me. I had a blast. It was a lot, very enjoyable getting you guys on the initial Colts Cast live here at the SB Colts Cast YouTube channel. Had a good time. Nice live show. Got some people involved through some calls, and you know, things were pretty. It was a good show. Thank you guys.
Yeah, it's a good time.
It was a good time. Thank you,
Thanks,
guys.
Matt.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Everyone calling in.
Yes, good calls. Thank you, Carmen. One of my favorites. You're still going to be one of my favorites. Make sure you guys are going to Apple Podcasts and give us a rating and review. Hook us up with a little bit of extra fluff, because we want people to think this is a good podcast, okay? So give us the little bit extra that we need to make it right. Thank you guys all for listening. Truly appreciate it. You guys are awesome. We are going to have a giveaway next week. I am going to do that. I've been talking about it forever. I just haven't gotten the shirt to give it away. So we're going to do that, and we're going to do it. And thank you guys again. This is going to be on the BTR website as well. But thank you guys all for joining us for our initial Stampede Blue Colts Cast here on YouTube. So thank you guys. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Colts Cast.
Stampede Blue.